Okay, Bronwyn, please.
Kia ora, kamihimahana, kia koutou. Lovely to see you again. I'm Bronwyn Hayward, Professor of Political Science, and I work on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This has been a really difficult budget, and I would really like to thank the Council for working hard to get the balance right. Just talking at broad principles, really. I just came back from working with combined city mayors in Riga and Latvia about what good governance looks like for cities in times of crisis. And I think when you're having to make the decisions about the budget and the hard decisions, if we could keep three principles in mind: first, protecting life; second, advancing good governance and the precautionary approach; and third, advancing social cohesion. So then my specific things that I would mention under the protecting life. I've mentioned it before in my last presentation, but in particular I'm just putting in a bid to support the bike lane at Te Aratai College, where we've already had an unfortunate child death. Anything that stops those kids coming straight out and onto the street. I actually do agree with the previous speaker that we might need to step back and think about the over-engineering of our cycleways. I'm sorry, I'm not a cycle engineer, but there's got to be a balance between the painted lines, which don't protect anyone, and the sort of crown jewels approach. So, but when it comes to kids and busy roads, something that protects them, that's not just a painted line, is essential. And on that, I would also support the Pages Road Bridge investment. I know that you all know, but we have got a really huge problem of no evacuation route that's safe for New Brighton in a tsunami. And that's a massive problem. We've also got a massive problem about how we get people out of Sumner, but in particular that is one that we do need to fix. So that's on the protecting life, my bit. On the promoting good governance and the precautionary principle, I do applaud the Council for thinking about ways to fund the long-term climate change impacts. It's really hard to decide how to do that. I think it is important that we do signal that fund. I was wondering why Christchurch is so interested in climate, and I think it's because we understand disasters. So we are thinking ahead about the disasters that will come. But I also, in good governance, would say that Christchurch has invested a lot of time and really moved things forward in a very significant case at Onuku Marae and Takapunaki Reserve, which has got national and international significance for how we do governance with and for Māori, and how we address a really great injustice. Now, the budget is growing and growing for that wastewater treatment. If we had actually just done it at the beginning, it would be cheaper. But now we're facing a difficult situation. I do agree with the previous speaker about please let's go back and look at how we take stormwater out of the system. But I disagree quite strongly with the positioning of the Robertson Bay's community. I understand their anxiety, but this isn't just an either or. It has to go into the sea or it goes onto land. There's lots of new, the bonus of taking 20 years to make this decision is there's lots of new distributed engineering for small spaces. So let's think about what we could do, including using it for fire. That doesn't mean that we're just discharging it into a marine reserve and carrying on. And finally, in the last minute, on advancing social cohesion, Christchurch, unfortunately, like other international cities, now knows the effect of polarisation in our communities, and you're on the front end of a lot of low-level and pretty nasty anger, but the terror attack that we have seen reminds us of how important it is that we build all of the networks. So I would really thank the Council for your investment in services that connect and support people. The things like our public libraries, our precious public space, the things like our social housing choices, our green spaces and our events are precious. And I thank you for creating a city that people aspire to live in. Kia ora.
Bronwyn. That was a lovely submission. I just want to clarify with you that the MCR project is one project, that's the major cycleway routes. 13 of them that emanate out from the central city. They're the ones with the concrete separation. They're the ones that are trying to get the interested but concerned cyclists on, keeping children and elderly safe. All the other cycle protection are cycle lanes, the painted green lines. So I just want to be clear that you understand that not all of them are going to be concrete. Only those 13.
But I'm just wondering about just going back and thinking about, there is a balance there somewhere. Like, we've got really big stuff and then we've got the lines. Is there a middle ground? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think our staff are looking at things like that, things like those bollards and things you can use instead, for sure. And you've probably noticed yourself that the attitude to cyclists has changed a lot in Christchurch since we've had them, because more people are cycling. Motorists are more aware, which means you probably don't need quite so much of.
Well, I don't know actually, but we'll let the engineers and the safety people know, think about it. But
yeah,
you're still a little skinny person along, and especially kids, and it is easy. And there's lots of studies that people discount the size and the space of cyclists. I do it myself if I'm in the car, and when I'm on a bike, I'm very conscious that people misjudge.
Tim, please.
Thank you. Your sixth paragraph was that I'm unsure of the tagged resilience fund. I mean, I look at the and whether it's global, however you want to look at it, there is sea level rise, and I look around New Zealand and other places, but in New Zealand we're a small country with a low amount of money. I'm just not sure anyone's really grasped the true effects of what's going to happen if we look in 100 years and 200 years. I don't think we've really grasped it.
No, I agree, and I think that's why I think Christchurch does understand that. When I said I wasn't sure, it was because I was away and I wasn't sure if we just. I totally agree with the previous speaker about the power of trees. And let's hope we don't end up like Barcelona, trying to have green spaces every 5 minutes walk, because the temperatures now are over 40 degrees in the summer. So, but on the other side, our problem is flooding, and it is incursion. And contrary to one of the speakers that's just spoken, the big risk is if we allow new buildings in places that we know within 20, 30 years are going to be at risk, we're creating another moral hazard. But it's just how we do that fund, because you don't want to give people the impression that that's all the money that's going to be needed, because it's a lot more. But on the other hand, you need some. It's good governance to put some. I totally agree, Tim.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Celeste, last question.
I just wondered if you had any thoughts around whether we should be also putting a lot more into sort of building a natural infrastructure in terms of biodiversity and making sure that we prioritise our investment in that space, because we've had a number of speakers say, there perhaps is insufficient investment into that area in terms of building community resilience.
Yeah, and I think for social cohesion, so it's looking at where we've got trees and the kind of trees. So in particular areas where we've got lots of children and families, like Hornby, we really need more to think about how we do that tree planting in those kind of areas. Using them for, and this is where all the planners are going on, using them for flooding, for flood control, using them for heat cooling. We are a green city, but it would be nicer to be greener. We're not as green as we think we are, but I live in a beautiful green wee bit, so I'm very grateful to whoever decided to plant those trees when it was just a swamp.
All right. So thank you very much. Thanks, Bronwyn. It was really nice of you to come in and talk to us. Appreciate that. What are we up to now? Living